Hello there, traveler. Bagabao has come to our venerable house, and he stole all our food. So, Jahn has brought us a present.
It's banana bread.
Yeah!
My wife made it.
Very nice! So, hello everyone, and welcome back. We are back.
Yes.
This is Jahn.
Again, hi, I'm Jahn.
I'm KH, or K to the H, if you want. And yeah, so Jahn, tell me something, tell me about these lovely banana breads.
They're delicious, nutritious.
Banana bread.
Yes. Fantastic delicious.
So, who made these?
My
Your wife.
Yes.
Do you know what's in the banana bread?
There's banana.
There's banana.
Certain other recipes,
Some
ingredients.
nuts.
There's some nuts, some raisins.
And banana.
Yeah, made with banana. The secret ingredient is banana.
All right. Should we dig in?
Yes. Let's have a piece. Just take this corner here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
On these cake slice shaped dishes.
This was darn good.
Yep.
So guys, if you want banana bread, you can always contact Jahn or his wife, and they can probably hook you up with some banana bread. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, so is this video just going to be about banana bread? Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. And eating. We're going to eat and drink coffee.
No. So, in today's episode, we are going to talk about... What are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about Darkest Dungeon.
The board game. So, Darkest Dungeon, the board game, is a board game adaptation of a video game.
Yes.
Very popular video game, very cool video game that I've played a lot. And I mean, the video game even kind of feels like a board game.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
So, this board game is made by Mythos Games, and the creators are... Do you want to pronounce their names, or should I? One each?
Sure, I'll do the tough one.
Okay.
So it's created by Nick Neotis and
Arguris Paunguras.
And that is exactly how those names are pronounced.
And if it's not, we apologize. If the developers are actually watching our video,
which I'm sure they are,
of course, then just let us know in the comments how you want us to pronounce your names and stuff. Okay, so tell us about the... we have to talk about the video game a little bit for them to understand what this board game is about. Now, the video game is set in a very dark fantasy setting, very inspired by Lovecraft and Cthulhu and the Lovecraftian mythos.
Yeah, very dark fantasy.
Absolutely. And the goal of the game is to restore this town, or there was another word. Hamlet, thank you. And you play as a descendant of the guy who was the owner of the hamlet, who let everything fall apart, and he did open some gates to the other dimension with the dark gods and blah blah. He messed up big time.
Yeah.
So you come to this place and you're trying to fix things, and then you have to hire heroes and go into dungeons and clear the dungeons and gather resources and things and money to rebuild the town or the hamlet. And these heroes are quite expendable.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to lose them too often, but they will die, and you have to kind of deal with that. So the gameplay in the video game is turn-based. You have 4 characters on one side, and once they like encounter enemies, you have a certain amount of enemies on the other side, and the turn order is very important here, because some characters can do things from the like in the row number 1, and then you have somebody in second row, third row, and fourth row. So you might want like your healer in the back, you might want your crusader, melee kind of character, tank in the front. You might have some other. There are a lot of dynamics and a lot of things you can play around with this dynamic.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the bad guys. And there are things you can do in the video game that'll change the order of where people are standing. And then suddenly you have your healer in the front, and they can't do anything but to move back. Or you have your melee guy in fourth row, and he can't attack from there. So this is a very interesting dynamic, and the board game kind of tackles that too in a very interesting way.
Yeah, definitely. Because in the board game, it's a flat board that you move around on like you would in a regular dungeon crawler board game. You're moving around the map, but you also have the order of the heroes.
Yes,
and they can still only do certain abilities if they are on certain spots, and certain abilities that trigger on the map. So, say you're pushing an enemy, or say you're pulling.
If there's anything that you're changing, like movement-wise, on the map, you also do it in the order.
So you can push an enemy away, and at the same time you're moving yourself back or forward in the order.
Line.
In the line.
And the same with the enemies. If you have an ability that pushes the enemy back, then he has to change his position. On the track with the other enemies. So as I said, in this game, you're gonna get used to losing some heroes now and then. You don't want to lose them too often, because then you're probably going to fail your campaign. But once in a while, if you lose a hero and manage to get through the mission and pull through, that is the main thing. You want to just get through the missions and gather resources and build the city or the hamlet. So that is the main thing. Sometimes you sacrifice the hero just to get the job done.
And what's kind of interesting now is that the way you're talking about, like, you're supposed to do this and you can lose heroes and you have to rebuild your hamlet, that goes for both the video game and the board game.
But it's a lot harder here, because you can't lose that many heroes here in one campaign. I think you can lose a maximum of 3 or 4, and then you can upgrade like the stagecoach in the hamlet, and then you can lose 1 or 2 more, but that's it. So you have to be a lot more careful here. Well, we can get back into the details on that. So that's the kind of premise of the game, both the board game and the video game. So in the board game, you also have a campaign. There's no like one-off. This is a campaign-driven game, and you play one character each, and everybody is on the same team. So it's a co-op campaign. Dungeon crawler. Okay, that probably covers some of it. Anything you want to add, or?
I mean, it's there are a lot of co-op campaign dungeon crawlers out there. This one feels very tactical. Like, they all do in their own way. But there are a lot of mechanics here that are very unique. They feel very unique. Like how you're moving around and exploring the dungeon, and you can choose if you want to just rush into a room or if you want to scout it, and that has certain benefits or drawbacks.
So let's just explain that a little bit. So you have so many things once you start like a dungeon. First, you're in the hamlet, you're preparing your heroes, you can choose your abilities before you enter the dungeon, you can upgrade some things, and then you start your mission. And from then on, you have your character track, as we explained, with the 4 different positions. And then you have like a little dungeon map that you use to explore the dungeon. And when you're moving the heroes around in this dungeon, you can either roll 2 awful
the horrible
dice
Yeah.
that'll make you lose resources, lose health. Maybe you have to interact with something called curios that like will give you curses and diseases and all sorts of
or skills.
It can be good things too, but mostly it's bad.
Yeah.
But you can do something called a scout action when you're kind of exploring before you enter the next tile. And what did that do? That makes you
so you roll
one less die for the bad stuff.
But it stresses all your heroes.
That's the thing that balances out. So stress is also a thing both in the video game and the board game. We didn't go into that, but like stress is the other thing you have to kind of navigate and manage the whole time in addition to your hero's health. If they lose all their mental health or like their stress maximizes, then they can get a heart attack and die. So you don't want that to happen.
No.
And if their wounds or like their hit points drop to 0, then they are on death's door, and then there's the chance that any attack against them will kill them. You have to roll a die here. And in the video game, it's a similar mechanic. So you want to explore before you go to the next tile, because if you don't, that's going to be way worse. You're going to want to take that stress.
And I also like that when you're sort of on the dungeon map, you can choose where to go, because you don't have to go through every room.
No,
and some of the rooms are really bad.
They are, and the missions you can choose between different missions in the campaign before you start. They're like, okay, we can choose this mission, and which ones do you guys think is maybe most worthwhile or easiest, depending on how badly wounded your heroes are, or how well prepared you are. Sometimes you want to take the easy mission, and sometimes you're like, if we manage to do this and this and this, then we're gonna have a lot more money. But then there's like a higher risk. It's like a risk reward system. But it's interesting that you said that, because you don't need to do all the rooms. And with the scout, you can see what type of rooms you have, and they're like, okay, we're not entering that room. We're going this way. So you don't. I have never played a game where we've actually finished all the rooms in a dungeon, and you don't always do that in the video game either.
Yeah, we played a mission where you have to clear rooms of a certain type. And we could sort of like go around and see that, okay, so we don't want to go there. We don't need to go there. We can just sort of skip, because this is probably just going to be a waste of time.
Exactly.
That was a very interesting thing. I haven't really seen many games that do that.
This is very unique. It's a dungeon crawler, but it's not like any of the other dungeon crawlers I've played.
I mean, it has a lot of it has a lot of unique abilities. And also, like you said, you choose your skills and abilities before you go into the dungeon. And that can be, you have a set of skills and abilities, and everybody just chooses what set they want to use for that particular dungeon. And I thought that was a really cool mechanic.
Absolutely.
Because that means you can do different sort of builds with each character depending on which other characters are in the group. If you lose your main healer, then maybe you want to have some more healing things, or maybe you just want to go all out for damage because you just want to kill the bad guys as quickly as possible. I thought that was a really fun twist.
Absolutely. There are a lot of variety to the style the party can choose to play, and that is the same in the video game too. Now, you hadn't played the video game.
No, I had barely tried.
We showed you the tutorial.
Yeah.
And Jahn has only been like on one game with this, while we have played like, I think this was the 4th or 5th game we did. So we're kind of mid-campaign. But it's good that you didn't come for the tutorial. Like you got a proper game.
Yeah, I felt like I got a fairly good impression of the game. Yeah.
So, as you guys can imagine, this is not like a very fast-paced, easy-to-learn dungeon crawler.
No, that's a good point. It took a while to play. Yeah.
It took a while to play, and it took us a lot of time to actually just get our heads around the different mechanics. And still, the the guy who read the rule book, he still has to hold our hands sometimes on what we have to do in what order and whatnot.
Yeah.
There's so many things you have to kind of have in the right order, and a lot of rules.
Yes.
It's a bit heavy as a dungeon crawler.
It is. I think this is not the greatest game to sort of start out with. This shouldn't probably not be the first game in your collection.
No.
But this is one of those games, like if you know that you like dungeon crawlers, I mean, you're probably gonna like it.
Now I've played like games like Zombicide, Descent, Sword and Sorcery, Massive Darkness, a lot of other dungeon crawling board games.
Yeah.
This is without a doubt the most complex one. I haven't played the one you told me about that you wanted us to try later.
Was that Kingdom Death?
Kingdom Death.
Kingdom Death Monster. That's a story for another time.
Yeah, we're gonna come back to that. But like, as you have played more complex dungeon crawlers, but this is the most difficult I have been through with the dungeon crawling genre.
Yeah, but there's a lot of moving parts, but it all kind of makes sense. You know, as soon as you sort of pick up what all the different things do, then you sort of get the rules better.
Absolutely.
But it's still hard to sort of figure out the tactics and sort of like solve the combat, you know, and figure out the combat, like what's the best thing to do, what's the best order to do things, and so on. It's really deep. Yeah,
absolutely. And the more you play, the more you'll get the hang of it, but also the longer your characters survive, because you level your heroes up, you upgrade them, and you upgrade their abilities too. And if the group survives, I mean the same heroes survive for a longer time, then you will learn what synergies they have, and what, like, okay, I can do this, but whenever I do this ability, I will change my position, and then the jester can do his ability, or like whatnot. Like, you can do different things like that, and the team will improve as a team.
Right.
You can say it like that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, but then that brings us to another thing. I think you touched upon that earlier. Like, you can customize your team and based on who's in the team. So
yeah.
And then like suddenly, bam, somebody dies.
Yeah.
Right. Dang nabbit. So, okay, shit, what do we do? Okay, in our tutorial mission, I think it was on the second turn of the dungeon, we made some rolls. We were like, there's a couple of monsters, alright, let's... Oh, the monster rolled a critical hit, okay, so that's damage, okay. Another critical hit. They're at death's door. Okay, we have to roll this red die, and don't roll a skull. Skull. What does that mean? The healer is dead. Okay then. So
that's a great way to start any
very
campaign.
Good way to start the campaign. And unlike the video game, we lost our Vestal, and the Vestal is out. Because in the video game, you have this stagecoach that comes with like different traveling heroes that travel through the hamlet, and if you lose a crusader, there might be that the next week another crusader comes through town. But here you only have one of each character. If that character dies, you have to make do with another character to fill that role, if you may. So our healer died, and then we had to choose another character, and we ended up using the arbalest as a healer, just because that was the closest we could get to finding a healer and a character that would fit with the rest of the team. Yeah. So you have all these funny little details with the game too. Yeah, so you have had only one game, but and you haven't had any experience with a video game either. But
no.
How would you compare this to like maybe Descent, for example, to take a board game, dungeon crawling board game that a lot of people have played out there, like.
Yeah, so most of the dungeon crawlers that I've played, and I think it goes for most dungeon crawlers, not all, of course, but a lot of the time you have your character and you have your abilities and you have the board, and you move about the board and you use your abilities to attack or heal or cast magic or whatever. You open a treasure chest and things happen, and it's on one hand it's more straightforward because you sort of, your character is your character and they have their abilities. In Darkest Dungeon, you have this thing where if I, when you plan your turn, if I use this ability, then I can move you to a position so you can use an ability, and it's not just about manipulating where the enemies are on the board, but that is also a thing, but also manipulating where the heroes are in regards to the sort of the track, the initiative, or what you might call it, and that's a thing that's fairly unique. And also, I like the flexibility of being able to change your abilities, like we talked about.
Yeah.
Because that's not something that you see a lot, and in a lot of games when you sort of
you gain XP into one type of build.
Yeah. So you get your XP, you level up, and you get the ability, and then that's it. You have that ability or that item or whatever it might be. But here you have a set of abilities, and those are your abilities. And when you level up, you gain access to use more abilities per dungeon.
Yes. So by default, level 1, the characters can have 3 different abilities to choose between. But then as you level up you can I think you can level up to level 3.
Right.
If I remember correctly. So at level 2 you can use 4 abilities, and at level 3 you can use 5 abilities.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. But that's an interesting thing. On one hand, it locks you a little bit because there are certain abilities that can only be used if you're in this position. And then, as an example, I played the Jester, and the Jester had like this really good attack, but he has to be up front to use it. And when he uses it, he ends up in the back.
Yes.
So it's a really cool thing that you kind of have to keep it in mind. And then, but maybe...
Finale, yeah.
Yeah. But maybe that Jester using that ability and going back pushes somebody else forward so they can use an ability.
If you plan things and if you're a bit lucky, this can be a very tactical thing to use.
I like it. I think it's an interesting mechanic.
And again, the better you know your character and the other characters, and the better the team, the more the team has played together, and the more you can exploit these tactical elements of the game.
Right.
I did a lot of these things in the video game. I had like an ability that you had to be in between like place 2 and 3, or actually I think it was only in position 3 you could use it. So I had 2 Crusaders in position 2 and 3, and then if whichever that was first of them, if I was lucky, the Crusader in the 3rd spot, and I had one with a lower initiative, so it was a higher chance the guy in the front was with the lower initiative, then he would start first, and he would do a great attack like a holy lance, and then they would change position so that when the next Crusader got his turn, he was in the same 3rd position, so he could do the holy lance as well. And you can do similar things in the board game too.
Yeah, I think the way to sum it up is that there's an extra layer of tactics on top of what you would normally get, and we really like it, as you may figure out by now.
And there are so many things to actually talk about just with the dynamics and how much tactics that brings, because every time you enter not the dungeon, but like a fighting dungeon room, every time you have a fight in a dungeon room, the rooms are very different, and the rooms will affect how you have to go forward with your strategy. Because sometimes most of the heroes will start together in one end of the room, but other times, based on what your position is, 2 and 2 heroes will be divided. Sometimes everyone is starting in different locations, and some rooms may have healing. If you end your turn in this exact spot, you can cure stress or wounds. So these things also affect what you want to do in one specific fight. So that's very interesting. And you have treasures you can find in the dungeon room while you're fighting. And if you don't collect that treasure by the end of the fight, well, you didn't get that.
Yeah.
And those treasures helped us a lot because you're going to run out of resources throughout the dungeon. And then you're going to be in trouble because then you're going to get more wounds and more stress. So
it's also interesting that if you just prolong the dungeon and just sort of stay there to collect treasure, you risk taking more damage, and you don't heal that damage between dungeons. In fact, you don't heal it when you go back to town.
Nope. That's what I meant with sometimes you might want to just choose the easier mission because you're so messed up as a team.
Yeah, so you can go into a dungeon and have like all these poison and bleed and all this damage.
Curses and you can get diseases, you can get weird quirks, and you have, again, this is of course from the video game, but like you can have weird quirks that may affect the rest of the team and mess things up. It's very cool. I've never played a video game or a board game with these kind of things before. The Darkest Dungeon.
Yeah, there's a lot of flavor to it.
Absolutely. And as we touched upon as we talked about, the room affects a lot of stuff. And another thing we still haven't talked about is that once you enter a room, you shuffle an initiative card for every character that is in that fight. Then you draw to see whether it's the good guys or the bad guys who will have their first turn. Yeah. And that is totally random. Yeah. So you may have a very good strategy, but then the bad guys will have their first turn. They'll mess you guys, and then mess up the heroes, and then like, okay, then there's a one initiative card for every character in that dungeon. But then you're unlucky and you draw another bad guy card, and then they have another turn, and then you can be unlucky and all of the bad guys can have their turn before the good guys have their turn.
Yeah, or you can have all the good guys go.
Or you can have all the good guys go.
And then all the bad guys will go, and then the next turn all the bad guys will go again before the good guys get to go.
So this also is very random but still tactical in a way that if you manage to eliminate the enemies before they've had their turn, there's a lower chance that you will get like ambushed by them having turn after turn. Because after every combat in every room, you have only 4 turns to finish the fight, or else that room was not cleared and you're thrown out of that room. So if you didn't kill them or get the treasure or get the job done, then whoosh, you fail that room. And the interesting thing with the mechanic is like after turn 1, you go through the initiative cards and then like, okay, so we killed 2 monsters, and you pull out 2 cards. So then you have 2 less cards for the bad guys, for example. So then it's like 4 heroes and 2 bad guys. So there's a higher chance that the heroes will get their turn first. Yeah. And we manipulated this, or were tactical with when there was just 1 guy left. We would use stun and try not to kill him, and then all our heroes would have their turn, and we would go and gather some treasures or heal. And then, okay, this is the 4th turn, we have to kill him. And then then we were all stress healed and had gotten some health back. So again, there are so many cool things about this game. I can't really praise this game enough.
Yeah, it's really good.
I think we've covered most of the mechanics now.
We've covered a lot of it.
I wasn't planning to, but there's just so much cool things to talk about.
Yeah.
So I think we've covered most.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've pretty much covered it.
Yeah, let's just jump to final thoughts, and would you recommend this to anyone?
That was terrible. No, I'm just kidding.
While you do that, I'm going to have one more.
Yeah, have some
banana bread. Yeah. Guys, you should call Jahn and his wife and have them bake some banana bread for you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, overseas shipping and
everything, and buy them in bulks, and they might give you a discount.
Yeah.
Okay, definitely. I'm sorry. Go on.
Final thoughts. Pretty good game. Really good game. It has a higher complexity level than most dungeon crawlers I've played, simply because the tactics are complex. Not because, I mean, the rules are, I'd say, it's above medium difficulty, medium to high, maybe complexity, but the tactics really require a lot of thinking. Like turn to turn, you have to stop and think, and I really like that. And I know it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but for me, that's a plus. And I also like how you have to work together.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just have 4 players who each sit and do their own thing around the table. You have to plan together, and you have to try to make the best out of everyone's abilities, or you will die.
There's a lot of interaction, and you have to plan everything together.
And I really like that too. So yeah, no, I really enjoy this. Yeah.
So out of use 10 die, 10-sided die.
Out of a 10-sided die. Oh, it's a bit tricky. I think I'm gonna give it an 8. Pretty solid 8. Yeah.
And I would say, if you don't like simple dungeon crawlers, but you like interesting mechanics and complex games, you might not even be that much into dungeon crawling, like genre type of thing, but like then still you might enjoy this because it's a very well made and very complex and deep game.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so yeah, I would also say it's the only other, it's not a dungeon crawling game, but the only other game I can actually compare it somewhat to in the complexity would maybe be Folklore. But that is not a dungeon crawler. That is an adventure game, role playing, but it has the dungeon crawling.
Yeah, it's similar.
It's very
and
similar.
Like you have a map.
You have a map. You go to towns and do things. Yeah,
there's a high likelihood if you're gonna die.
It's also very dark.
Yeah, it's also very dark.
So, and I think these 2 games are probably my favorite dungeon crawling campaign style co-op games. I would also give this an 8 out of 10. I would not recommend this to people who are if you want to start playing board games and you want to like something easy to learn. There's a huge gap, for example, between Zombicide and this, I would say.
Oh yeah.
Where Zombicide is easy to pick up, easy to learn. You can play it like as a one-off every time. You don't need to do any. I don't think the only campaign I know with Zombicide is a fan-made campaign.
Right. Yeah.
Or like Descent. All of these are way simpler. But then again, if you love dungeon crawling games, you like complex games, you like anything that is very tactical, this will probably be to your satisfaction.
Or just a tactical co-op game.
Or tactical co-op game, absolutely. And yeah, and if you like campaign games, I love campaign games.
Yeah, me too.
Bit
biased, I guess.
Yes. I felt kind of like this game is very tailored to our taste.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, that should cover it.
Yeah.
So, thanks for stopping by, guys, and stay classy. Remember to give Jahn a call. Cheers, dude.
Cheers.
And yeah, take care. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
See you next time.
So, you wanna?
Yeah, let's get the next mission up.
Yeah,
let's do that.
It's not that late.
No, we have time.
Can't
for a
take
couple of games.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Nei, vent.
Det er vel plisken.
Det står faktisk plisken på.
Ja. Det er en type slang.
Det er ikke feil.
Yes. Her sitter Easter egg i Metal Girl.